Hi everybody, this is the baseball head, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion, your host, and welcome back to the baseball head. Hopefully, God, I hope you like this video. So, I did not watch the game. Thank God I didn't watch the game against the Dodgers. Mets lost 10-3. It was much closer than the final score was, believe it or not. A lot of stuff happened. A lot of stuff happened before the game, during the game, at the end of the game, and after the game, in the clubhouse. Oh my goodness. I wonder why so many of my subscribers are like spastic. I wonder why. I wonder why they need to be put in, like, they need some medication. I don't, of course. But this was quite the day here. This is quite a day. It started out right before the game started. Mets announced that Edwin Diaz had been placed on the injured list because he's got some kind of impingement in the shoulder. I thought that, and I felt for a while, and if you watch my videos, I felt that he'd probably been dealing with some kind of issue with his arm. Because obviously he's not throwing 99, he was throwing 96. He had no command on his fastball, he was just throwing sliders, which is going to put a big strain on his elbow. But he had some kind of issue with the shoulder, and he's going to be gone for a little bit. Hope he's not gone too long. Then during the game, believe it or not, Pete Alonso got hit in the hand. X-rays are negative. Guy's a tough guy, always getting hit in the hand. Then we played the game. The Mets fell behind 3-0. Tied the game up. And then they just sort of fell apart at the end of the game. And I guess they brought in Jorge Lopez at the end of the game. And he had a meltdown with the umpire. Got thrown out by the third base umpire, who I guess he's got a bit of a cantankerous attitude. I would mention that I guess Lopez might have gotten thrown out in honor of Angel Hernandez, who's no longer with us. Not that he's gone, but that, he retired, But he got tossed, and not only did he get tossed, when he walked up the field, and this is Jorge Lopez, he tossed his glove into the air and into the stands. Wow. That did not go over well. He has been designated for assignment, if you don't know. Found that out just right before I started doing this video. The Mets are going to get rid of him. It didn't take that long. But that's not the real story about what happened in this after the game. After this performance by Lopez. After the game, the media wanted to go into the clubhouse. The media couldn't go in the clubhouse because the clubhouse was closed to the media because the Mets were holding a meeting. And the great leader that he is, Francisco Lindor, said, you know what? We need to talk about this. Really? The number one type of leader, it's not a leader that calls these meetings. The best leader is the guy that performs on the field in sports. And he's done a lousy job. But that's not what happened, which is interesting. This is now the third meeting that the Mets have had in the first 2 months of this season. They're now 11 games under 500. It doesn't mean shit unless you do it on the field. Now the media went and talked to Jorge Lopez. And Lopez, they asked him about throwing the glove into the stands. And he said that he is on the worst effing team in MLB. Now people are saying that he said teammate. I'm not 100% sure what he did say, but then the reporters, particularly Steve Gelbs of SNY, asked him, "Can you sort of clarify what you said? Did you say team or teammate?" And he said probably team, essentially. So he basically said that he's on the worst team in baseball. Now this is now the second time in 2 years now, second time in a year, that a player for the Mets has come out and complained about that clubhouse. The last player was Tommy Pham. Remember Tommy Pham? Tommy said that they were the least hardest working team that he'd ever been on. Now we have another guy who he's bounced around. He's been on a lot of different teams. I didn't realize this. He pitched for David Stearns years ago, back in 2017, 2018 with the Brewers. But it's interesting we have another player, a second player that has said something about that clubhouse, saying it's the worst team that he's ever been on. And he's been with the Baltimore Orioles for a few years. So this is a guy he knows bad teams. So to sort of mention them as the worst team in MLB, in baseball, says something. Now, we have two people now that have talked about that clubhouse and talked about this team. That is something that as fans should concern us. Obviously, with the record the last 2 years should concern us as it has. But this attitude, before I came on, I wanted to read a couple things that Tommy had said last year. One of the things he said that the team had no drive. Isn't that true? I think we kind of know that. There's no sense of urgency. There's really no sense of urgency with this team. Even now, even though they did this meeting, I don't feel that's resolved anything. Sometimes at these meetings, you feel like something's resolved. There's something that's going to happen. Now, I would mention, going looking at the past, whenever David Johnson back in the 80s had a team meeting for the Mets in the 80s, which wasn't too often, he always made sure that Doc Gooden was pitching the next day. Because he knew Doc was a W, and that would have like cleaned the palate of the club. Mets don't have that. Now, this group, we've been watching now this group, in particular 4 or 5 of these guys for the last 5 years. It hasn't worked. In 2019, this group was terrible in the first half. And then they turned it on in the second half, and everybody made a big deal out of it. About how they played so well, and they won 86 games. But then they played terribly in 2020. That was a condensed season. They played lousy in 2021. They couldn't seem to get out of their way. Real lack of a sense of urgency. No sense of urgency, no sense of getting the job done. It's always sort of this, whatever, And now, in 22, they had that, and then the last month, they didn't have it. And then last year was a complete, total collapse, particularly in June. And nobody stepped up. Nobody did what was needed to turn this group around, turn this team around. And now you're seeing it again. And probably even worse now. They're now on pace to lose 97 games. The Mets have not lost 100 games since 1993. And they're going to get awfully close to hitting that 100-loss mark. And that should tell you that it's time to take a step back and look. This whole group is not working. It's not working with Alonso, McNeil, Nimmo, Diaz, and Lindor. Okay? Those are the leaders on this team. And if this group cannot lead, then you have to, if not one player wants to step up and really lead, not just lead in the clubhouse and say all the right things. You can say all the right things, but if you don't do it on the field, then that really, and isn't contributing anything with the other players, or they're not listening, whatever, then this group can't stay together. Okay. Now, the one thing that by accepting this, folks, is that it hurts next year. How deep is the cut of this group that it kind of hurts you for next year? Do you have you move all these different pieces out of here, and then at some point you say to yourself, well, if I go too deep, where am I going to be next year? Then I'm going to have all these holes on the field. You can't necessarily have that. But if this entire group's been together for as many years as they've been, even if you take away 2019 and 2020, that's 4 seasons now with this particular group of players, especially the leadership part. Because there is no leadership on this team, okay? Leadership isn't just on, like I said, on the field, in the clubhouse. It's on the field. And since you don't get that leadership on the field, then you don't have a leader. Simple as that. This guy led on the field. This guy led on the field. These 2 guys led on the field, okay? Primarily with their production. They always came through in big spots. There are other players, obviously, Gary Carter, Robert Ventura, and go down the line, all these great players that came through with the Mets that were great leaders. David Wright. But this group doesn't have that, okay? This group doesn't have a leader that comes through in the clutch, that comes in when you need him, and gets a big hit, makes a big play when you need it. This group doesn't have it. No matter how hard they try, it's just not within them. And it might be they're just not talented enough as a group. That's a possibility. That maybe we got fooled by the numbers and just said, you know what, this group's just not good enough. They can only go so far with this group. So That's how I view it. That's how I look at it. And thank God I didn't watch this. Now, Jorge Lopez, he's getting sent out of here. He's getting shipped out of here, thankfully. Because you can't have a guy like that in the team complaining about the team. You cannot have that. But that is a warning, folks. Now, two guys talking about this clubhouse, essentially. And if you got a veteran player saying that there's a problem with this clubhouse, then you got to clean, you wash your hands, and you move on. That's how I look at it. Well, you let me know what you think about this video. Holy shit, someday I'm glad I missed it. But, I got a gist of what was going on. And I didn't realize this was going on, this whole thing with Lopez, until I got home. And I was watching the end of the post-game show. They didn't even mention it. But Lopez, skadoosh, you're out of here. He'll be out of here. And it's interesting. He pitched well. I don't get why he had that meltdown. But there must be a lot of problems inside that clubhouse. So now we got another player talking about it. So let me know what you think about this video. And I'll keep you up to date on what's going on with the Mets. Unfortunately, they keep losing. But I'll keep going. And I'll be funny. I'll be entertaining. We'll make fun of the players. Trust me. Trust me. We'll do that here. I have no problem making fun of the players. That's for damn sure. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you later.